Right then folks, welcome back to the garage. I'm finally back in my garage after my stay in the house of doctor's orders. I feel like I've been on house arrest. So finally I've been let loose with intent to do damage in the garage. So I'm back at it, and I can't say how pleased I am to be back at it. I've been bored out of my skull in the house. So today we're going to finish off the Escort engine bay, get it in top colour. I've purposely kept it out of shot because I am done. And I'm happy with the result, but I see how it was a bit of a mishap along the way, and you'll see that as we get to it. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. Hopefully you'll see one or two things which are useful to you, and a couple of things I've learned along the way. So keep watching, you'll see the results. Righto, back on the beast. So we're going to start on prepping this for a coat of primer. So I've had another bit of filler on our little press in there to get that just a little bit sharper around there. And if you can see here, hopefully I can stop this from blurring. See the shine difference between there and there. So it's a nice dull finish on that, shine on that, and I'm simply been using some what size is this? 120. There we go. Some 120 grit on the flat bit, and then a bit of this stuff to get into the areas like that, which is not so easy to get to. Once it's all dull, then we can start about putting some primer on it, the high build primer. There are some areas which have gone through the metal, so I might just mix up a little bit of epoxy and brush those in rather than spray them in. And then once it's all dull and ready to go, we should be on to the next step. I'm not being too precious. Obviously the top areas here which are most in view, I'm being a little bit more precious about, but not nearly as precious as I'm going to be when I come to doing this. You see I've had a little bit of a scuff up on there, just messing around with the new Timu block there, which I've been messing about with, but we'll come back to that at a later date. So all I'm doing, as you can see, nice flat hand. Changing direction, making a crisscross pattern. And using the edge of my fingers then for the radiuses. And then just brushing it off with a nice bit of clean cloth so I can see where I'm at. And using this stuff then to get into all the little areas which are not so easy to get to, just to take the shine off. And I shall do that through the entire engine bay, which will take me for the rest of my life most likely. Then we'll be ready for primer. I'm also trying to pay particular attention to these little areas here, because this is where the paint will start peeling from if you don't get them right. So right in the corners, it's really important that they get right in there carefully, get those out, because it's more likely to peel off of there than it is there if you've not got it perfect, because as the paint sets off, it'll shrink a little bit and it'll shrink out of those corners. So it's really worth taking the time and effort just to get into these little areas. And you don't have to go pressing hard against it, it's just literally just light rub, light sanding over it, that's all it needs. And the other area to be careful of is any sort of sharp edges. So if you stand up the edges and these sharp edges, you'll go through with these in no time. So concentrate on the flat bits before the sharp edges, then just gently over the edge like that. That'll be more than enough. See the scratches in there? That'll be plenty. Hopefully you can see those. That's all you need for the paint to key. Because of course now, because I've been on house arrest by the doctor, all this is a month old. So all this paint is now gone off well and truly. So there'll be no chemical bond if I just went straight on top of this. I've got to scratch everything up to give a mechanical bond. Hours of sanding later, and I mean hours upon hours, we are getting somewhere. So this is the epoxy primer coat now sanded down. There's a couple of areas we've gone through. So I think I'm just going to mix some up and do that, just brush those in. nice and lightly. But this is why body shops charge so much, because this is epically time consuming. Right, there we go. So just very quickly dabbed over the bits that rubbed through with just a bit of small brush and a bit of paint mixed up. Nothing too exciting. So once that's set off, what we can do then is blow it down, tack it off, and look about putting a coat of high build primer on it all. Right, okay, I've been busy with the 3D printer and I've made myself an air-fed mask of sorts. Let me show you. So what I've done, I've adapted, I'm brushing off, it's dusty. I've adapted an ordinary mask which has the filters on the sides. I've printed off an elbow for one side and a blank for the other side. So that's one part of it. Let me give that a dust down so you'll be able to see out of it in a moment. I've also glued some glasses in there so I can see what I'm doing. The other side, I've made a gadget which uses an airbed pump, one of those things. Connect it up to a battery off of my battery screwdriver, and with a little gadget from eBay to control the speed, that turns it on and off and controls it, and then that blows out of there through this tube into my mask. Let me put it on and show you. It's got an old belt then to use to put it on with. So this all goes around the back like so. That up so you don't see my fat belly. Lovely. What that means is I can spray with all sorts of weird, wonderful paints now without thinking I'm poisoning myself, which is a concern, of course. Right, okay, we are tacked off, dusted down, and ready to spray some primer. So let's see how this goes. So I've got some U-Pol High Build Grey, and it's a 4:1. So we'll mix it up 4:1 and mix it first to see what it's like, and then we'll it's 4:1. Then we'll give it a whirl. Let's see what we think of it. So it's 4:1. Okay. Cute little can. Okay. So 4:1. So if we go 2, 2, 2, we should be enough to give us get us started and see how we're getting on. So 4:1. If we go for 2, 2 and 2, we should be right. Let's give it a whirl. No, just above the 2 as it happens. Right, let's give that a mix first, see how thin it is, and decide whether we're going to put thinner in it. Oops. Paint on the camping table, I'm going to be in trouble with Mrs. Dave. It's fine. Yeah, boy, does need a bit of thinner. Not too thin, of course, because you want to work as a primer filler.
Ah, lovely. What a mess. What happened there? Oh dear, that's not a good start. Ah. Oh, okay, that's really good.
So at this point, I have no idea what's happened. The top of the gun, the paint pot just popped off, just like it just exploded off, made an almighty mess all over the floor. I've managed to get it going again, get a bit of spraying done, but it's not spraying right. It's like puffing them and spraying out rather than spraying out tidy. So I keep on persevering, see what happens. And the paint finish coming out is it's all right. It's only primer, so it's a high build primer. As long as you get it on the panel, it doesn't really matter how it goes on, as long as it's not running and falling all over the place. But I know something's not right here, and I don't understand what. It takes me a little while to figure it out. And of course, at this stage, I've lost most of my paint, which I've mixed up, so that's a pain as well. And it's just about this point I figure out what's going on. The pot is pressurised. You can see me sticking my finger in the top of it there. I realise the pot is getting pressure where it should be on a vacuum. Cheap and cheerful gun, obviously didn't like being used more than once. Right, okay, that could have gone better. The paint has gone on okay, but I had a disaster with the spray gun. So this US Pro spray gun, I think it's a one-shot wonder, because this time as I was using it, pressure was getting up into the cap, which blew that thing off completely. So I went over to the original thing, and as I was cleaning it out with thinners, I could see there was air bubbles coming back up into the pot, which I'm pretty sure that's not supposed to happen, and it was making it spray or spattery. It was all a bit weird. But thankfully, the paint has gone on okay, so that's a bit of a result. Probably not gone on as thick as I would have wanted it to, but it's on there. That's one coat, so I think we'll leave that to set off and go in and lick my wounds, as it made a bit of a mess. I've turned these over just so I'm not stepping on paint. If I turn this back over, I made a bit of a mess. So it's an upset Mr. Spider too. But the good news is my mask worked really well, and used up one battery. I don't know how much life was in this battery, so I've put this on charge. It may be I got to keep 2 batteries up charged ready. Righty-ho, so this is all set off now, so it's a day or so later. So I'm going to go over these areas here now, just very lightly with some 600 grit. And I don't know if it'll show up on the camera. If we can stop it, get it to focus. Oh. There's an area here which I went over with a brush. I think you can just about see it there. Hold focus. Just needs a gentle over with a bit of 600 grit. Nothing too exciting, so I don't want to go through the epoxy underneath. So go over those little bits and then give it another coat of high build primer. Right, hopefully you'll see that with a bit of better lighting. I've gone over that with just 600 grit very, very lightly, just to blend out those differences between the brush marks and the paint, the primer filler. So you can see the epoxy primer just showing through a little bit there, but no metal. And that's what we want. That's nice and smooth now. So the next coat of primer over that will be sorted. Let's see if I can set up. I've got another bit more over here which I've done. I'll try and set the camera up, but I seem to be struggling with it not focusing properly. And this is dry sanding as well, so I'm not wet sanding this. So if you'll see, there's some brush lines here. So we're just very, very slightly with our 600 grit paper, very gently just bring those out. And I don't want to wet sand this, not yet anyway, because I don't want it introducing moisture into the paint. And I'm hardly touching this, it's just very, very light touch. So if you can see on the camera now where I've gone over it, you can see where the brush marks are. You just need very, very gentle to remove them. And then for the rest of it, just a very slight scuffing over. For two reasons: it knocks the high spots off, the nibs and whatever off of it, and there's no need to go too mental with it, I found in my experience anyway. Just enough to knock the tops off, and that the paint will stick to it just fine. And the paint is still relatively fresh, it's only a couple of days old. See there, hopefully you can see the patches difference. So we can sand that back down gently now until those disappear. And flat fingers on the flat, of course, flat fingers on the flatter places. And then when you've got the curves like that, choose your finger which suits the curve. So if I was to go into there now, little finger, and just gently. Otherwise, if you go too hard, you end up with ridges either side. And of course then, on the edges, as before, be careful, don't sand too hard on those because they'll go through in no time. As you'll see there, you probably might just see a little bit of paint there, fresh steel there. Ignored my own advice there. Right, so I'm going to go around the rest of the engine bay doing exactly that. Right, we're once again at the stage where we are fully rubbed down and ready for another coat of primer. So you can see over there some of the epoxy primer is starting to show through just gently, and that's fine because that's why we're having a couple more coats of the high build grey. So looking okay, I think, so far. The only bit I think is I could have done a bit better with is the shape of around there. There's a bit of a divot there, but I can live with it because it's under the bonnet. Obviously when it comes to doing the stuff outside the car, we're going to be a lot more careful about the finishing touches. Right, I've been shopping on Argos and I've bought this R500 gun. Again, it's a cheap and cheerful gun, relatively speaking, but a bit more expensive than the 20 quid guns. I think this one was £50. So I bought this and some blocking tools as well for later on down the line. Some of these Dura blocks, which the box is a lot smaller than I expected it to be, but we'll come back to those later date, because that's for the outer body work. So let's see what this is like. I was planning on keeping this just for the top colours, but both my guns I've got down there, which are now in the rubbish pile, dead. I've tried them both, they're both rubbish. So let's mix up a bit of paint and chuck it on with this gun. Right then, so I'm standing outside of the garage now and going to give that 15 minutes to flash off, which is what the code says on the tin. Then we give it another coat. But that gun seems to be spraying quite nicely, so it's hopefully that's not going to be a one-shot wonder as well. We're back to square one. That's all flashed off and looking tidy. Quite pleased with the finish of that gun. It's quite a nice smooth look to it. Got a little bit of khaki gone in there, so you can get that out. I think I'm thinking that as worse here. Right, let's mask up and get coat number 2 on. Coat 2 is on. I knew I didn't have probably enough left in my gun for the lot, so I concentrated on the tops, along the bubble, along there, and just did what I could with the rest to get a finish. So I'm happy with that. I think we're ready for top coat. So I'll let this do its thing, and then I'll come back probably on the weekend now when I got time to put top coat on it. So yeah, happy with that. So far so good. The R500 gun has worked nicely. I've now got the bits in a tub of epoxy thinners to clean those off. So hopefully, chuck that piece in as well. Hopefully I'll be able to use that again without it going horrible. We will see. Okay, that's had another quick going over with some P600, just to, or 600 grit, just to knock the nibs off. So now we're going to have a go at doing a bit of top coat with a Ford Ermine White. So I'm going to mix that up, have some refreshments ready to keep me going, and let's have a go. So I use this gun to do the primer, so hopefully it's going to be okay to spray this stuff up. Coat 1 has gone on quite nicely, quite pleased with that. It's yeah, lovely. Happy with that. Happy. So we'll touch that to see how we're doing. And that's it. Still tacky, but not going on the finger. So we're ready for coat 2. Right, I am happy with that. So that's come off. The second coat was a little bit more orange peely. Gonna mix it up a little bit thicker than the previous one, but I'm not too worried about that. Got a couple of little nibs and bobs going in along the front here, but a quick scuff over with some 1000 grit or 2000 grit. A bit of better enjoy on that when it comes to it. We'll sort that out, but I'm quite happy with, considering most of this will be covered up with engine and bits. I'm happy enough with what we got there. That's more than suitable. But the heater bubble and the tops of the wings, they come out lovely. So very happy with how that's worked out. Happy days. Well, there we have it. She is done and shiny and ready for an engine. But we'll not get too far ahead of ourselves. I want to get, the next step will be clean up the interior of the cabin bay and give that a coat of paint. Now I'm going to be doing that slightly differently, so watch out for the next episode. I'll explain that on the next one. I'm very happy with the results of this. There was a couple of little nibs because obviously it's not a spray booth environment, it's a dusty old garage. So there are a few little nibs and bibs in there, but some very fine wet and dry over that, just a very light over and a buff up. That'll come up lovely. So it's in the engine bay, so I'm not going to be too worried about that. If I get this finish on the outside, I'll be very pleased. So far so good. A couple of lessons I learned is cheap and cheerful spray guns off eBay, like that US Pro one. It only costs 20 quid. They are effectively a disposable gun. So don't buy them thinking, that's it, I've got a spray gun for life. When they're working, they do actually spray quite nicely, but the interiors are just made of chewing gum. So as soon as you've had some sort of solvent through them, they fall to bits and then they just don't work anymore. So, and you can spend so much money on decent spray guns. So you can spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds on them. So you just factor the cost in as if you're buying the paint. So you'll pay X amount for the paint, and just add 20 quid on top of that for a spray gun for each time you're going to use it. And it still works out cheaper than paying somebody to do it or buying an expensive gun which you're only going to use once in a blue moon. So that's the biggest lesson I got from this. And in fact, trying to reuse a cheap gun has cost me in paint, because we had a small explosion of paint which mostly happened off camera, which almost is a shame as it happens, because that would have been a good thing to have had on camera for you guys to see, not so much for me. But I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you're as pleased as I am with the result. Drop a comment and a like and a subscription and let me know what you think.